Formula One is a sport where, most of the time, rule bending is encouraged to the extreme. Innovation, and therefore wins, comes to those who think outside the box and see the gaps in the rules. Recently though, things have been getting pushed a little too far, the FIA's liking. Flexible wings, or flexi-wings as they're commonly called, have been an ongoing battleground between the teams and the FIA for years now, and from the Singapore Grand Prix onwards, the FIA are hoping to ban them for good. Want to know how and why? Then stick around for the rest of the video. The problem of flexi-wings has been highlighted again in recent months, with teams reporting that the FIA has been paying closer attention to them. It was reported that several teams, which we'll show you later in the video, were advised to make changes to their front wing designs around the time of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, in a bid to ensure that they did not fall foul of any rule breaches. The current regulations include a load test on the front and rear wings to check that they stand up to a certain level of force, and all teams have to be compliant with these tests. These tests are here to ensure that all the teams are in compliance with Article 3.2.2 of the F1's technical regulations. It states that all components that influence a car's aerodynamic performance must be rigidly secured and immobile with respect to their frame of reference, defined in Article 3.3. Furthermore, these components must produce a uniform, solid, hard, continuous, impervious surface under all circumstances. It is impossible to make anything 100% rigid though. No matter how thick or strong you make something, it will always move under the right amount of force. This is why the FIA has their load tests, which the teams have to adhere to, because at some point, you just have to say that is strong enough. If you fit a Formula One car with a front wing made of material 3 feet thick, it probably isn't going to flex, but it's also going to ruin the car. The FIA test gives the teams a set level that the FIA say they're happy with. The problem is that when you have a benchmark that you have to achieve, you know at what point you can allow your wing to flex. Let's say the FIA applies 50 newtons of force to your front wing in one direction. But then the teams know that they can let their wing flex when they receive 51 newtons of force or more. Or maybe it can hold 50 newtons of force in one direction, but if you apply that force from a different direction, it can only hold 40 newtons. What makes the situation even more difficult to police is the fact that the bodywork is designed to flex at high speed. Static load and push tests can only go so far in identifying such flexion, as the forces imposed on the car when it is in motion will always create more dynamic behavior. Basically, there are a load of ways that you can pass the test but still have a flexible wing. But why would you want a flexible wing in the first place? It's really simple. It reduces drag. Hold up a book with the front cover facing you. That is the surface of a wing. It is a flat surface that catches the air and creates loads of drag. But if it could bend back as it got faster, you now have a nice ramp that the air can flow over instead of a wall that stops it. So as the wing bends back, it creates less drag, meaning your car can continue to accelerate. There is another benefit to this though. At this weekend's Monza Grand Prix, you want as little drag as possible because of those huge high-speed straights. But there are also some very low-speed turns, such as the chicane after the pit straight. So you also need enough downforce to get around those corners. Having a flexible wing means when you're going slowly, you can generate lots of downforce, but as you speed up, the wing will flex into a more aerodynamic shape, allowing the air to pass over it easier and reduce the drag created. These flexi wings have existed in Formula One for decades. The introduction of slot gap separators on the rear wing in the mid-2000s was aimed at stopping this from happening. Look at this footage of a Williams front wing from 2014. See how the black part of the front wing on the left-hand side moves up as the car brakes? That is because as the speed of the car decreases, the force applied to the wing decreases and springs back into position it would have been in when the FIA do their tests. If the FIA have their way, then this weekend's Grand Prix could be the last time we see them. At least until the teams work out a way to get around the tests again. After this weekend's Grand Prix, a new technical directive will be added to the rulebook. In TD 018, which was sent to the teams ahead of the Dutch GP weekend, the FIA states that it believes outfits are exploiting regions of purposefully designed localized compliance, plus relative motion between adjacent components, to deliver a significant boost to aerodynamic performance. Basically, the teams are making the bits the FIA tests compliant with the rules, and then just ignoring the rules anywhere else. Anyone found to be doing this will be in breach of Article 3.2.2 of the technical regulations which we mentioned earlier. If they are in breach, then they won't be able to use the parts that are found to be in breach anymore, which means designing and building new wings which cost time and money, something that is very precious in Formula One. I hear you say, but you just said teams have been getting away with these rules for decades. How are the FIA going to stop it now? Well, apparently the main concerns that the FIA has when it comes to the rear wing is in the design of the end plates and the mounting pillar, with the teams now required to submit assembly drawings or images and cross-sections showing the fixation of the rear wing elements to the rear wing end plates, the rear impact structure, and the pylons, and assembly drawings or images and cross-sections showing the fixation of the rear wing pylons to the rear impact structure. I'm sure at some point this season you've seen Alpine's rear wing waving all over the place. If your wing is moving that much through a chicane, it is definitely going to be swinging backwards at high speed and reducing the amount of drag it is creating. McLaren complained a lot about that wing at the time, and in recent races, I haven't seen it moving nearly as badly as it was. After the 2021 Azerbaijan Grand Prix, the FIA made the teams put those little yellow reference dots on their rear wings. This is why. This is footage from the pit straight at Baku showing the Red Bull and then the Mercedes rear wing changing shape as they brake into the first turn. When they're at full throttle going down the straight, the wing leans back, but as the force applied to the wing from the air passing over it decreases when they brake, the wing bends back. This clip is Mercedes' front wing from the same race. Just like how the Williams front wing moved in the clip I showed earlier in the video, Mercedes' wing did the exact same thing. In 2021, these moving wings were a massive controversy. Everyone was accusing everyone of cheating, but despite the changes the FIA made to the rules then, FLEXI-WINGs returned in 2022. Here is the Mercedes front wing flexing last year. See how there is a cut in that top element of the front wing so the outside part of the wing can lean back at high speeds. And here is Ferrari's front wing, doing the exact same thing last year as well. It was pretty well known that everyone was doing it last year, but the FIA failed to do anything about it during the off-season, so it returned this year as well. These images are from the Dutch Grand Prix last weekend. Just look how much those front elements are moving. And that is at one of the slowest tracks on the calendar as well. So will the FIA's new ruling stop this from happening? Maybe for the rest of the season, but don't be shocked if the flexing wings return in 2024. Now there has been loads of talk about who this is going to affect the most, but as you can see from the footage I've just shown you, everyone is doing it. Aston Martin's recent dip in form was widely blamed on a secret FIA investigation into their flexing wings, which meant they had to make changes. If every team on the grid is affected in the same way that Aston Martin were, then Fernando Alonso could be favourite for a race win in Singapore, which will be the first race with the new flexi-wing restrictions and tests in place. I don't think that is the case though. Aston Martin have said many times that their upgrades introduced around the time of the Spanish Grand Prix just didn't work in the way they wanted them to. Since then, they have managed to refine some form, with Fernando Alonso finishing in second with the fastest lap in Zandvoort. All those teams that are pointing fingers at Aston Martin, saying the FIA caught them cheating, are going to look really stupid when they arrive in Singapore with new wings or bits of tape and patches everywhere to stop things flexing. So who is going to be the biggest loser? It's impossible to tell. The performance gained from the flexing wings will be different for every team, but I'm sure many of you will have your fingers crossed for Red Bull being the most affected. Are you surprised at just how widespread the flexing wings are? Or is this just F1 doing what F1 does? And who is going to be the biggest loser to this rule change? Let me know your predictions in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.